You know that feeling, right? It's 2 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, and your brain is just stuck on an endless loop about someone else. You're trying to decode every single text they sent, overanalyzing what they meant, worrying about what they'll do next. Look, if you've been there, you are absolutely not alone. It is so exhausting and frankly a super relatable reality for most of us. But here's the kicker. What if all that mental energy you're burning trying to figure them out is actually the very thing preventing you from knowing yourself? Today, we're diving into this explainer on the profound psychology of Carl Jung to figure out exactly why we obsess over others and, more importantly, how we can finally reclaim our own minds. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why can't you stop thinking about them? Well, honestly, we've all been sold a pretty massive societal myth. Think about every rom-com you've ever seen, or every pop song on the radio. We are constantly taught that obsessing over someone is this ultimate, romantic sign of deep love. We're conditioned to believe that caring about people means holding them in our thoughts 24/7, and that real connection literally requires giving them all our mental bandwidth. But Jungian psychology, it completely dismantles this whole idea. Jung argues that when someone takes up that much real estate in your head, you're not actually connecting with them at all. You're just giving away your power and totally losing yourself in the process. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at what's actually happening up in our brains. There is a massive, crucial difference between genuinely trying to solve a relationship problem and just being trapped in an anxious mental compulsion. Productive thinking, it's highly structured. It's got a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. You make a plan, you process an event, you close the mental tab, and you move on. But that thing you do when you obsess over someone, that's rumination. And rumination just loops endlessly. In fact, get this, your brain actually burns as much energy running these anxious loops as it does taking a complex maths test. It's not problem solving, even though your brain tries to trick you into thinking it is. It's just an endless cycle rooted deeply in your own anxiety.
And here is where Carl Jung drops a rather harsh, but ultimately liberating, truth bomb. When you're lying awake, frantically trying to figure someone out, you aren't actually thinking about them. The person in your mind, they're just a story you've created. It's your construction. And the wild part is, the more elaborate that mental construction becomes, the further away you get from knowing who that person actually is in reality. You're basically interacting with a custom avatar inside your own head, an image that's stitched together from your own interpretations, assumptions, and assigned meanings. Crazy, right?
Which brings us right to a foundational concept in Jung's work, projection. So, projection happens when you take elements of your own psyche. We're talking your hidden fears, your unfulfilled desires, your deepest insecurities, and you unconsciously place them onto another person. You actually experience those feelings as if they entirely belong to the other person, when in reality they're just a mirror reflecting you. So those desperate, exhausting attempts to decode someone else's behavior, they actually reveal far more about your own inner psyche than they ever will about the person you're obsessing over. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's absolutely brilliant.
Now, if this is hitting a little close to home, I really want you to hear this. This obsessive focus is not a weakness. For so many of us, especially if you had to navigate unpredictable or chaotic environments growing up, this is actually a brilliant learned childhood survival strategy. Somewhere along the line, you probably learned that you had to hypermonitor other people's moods just to stay safe. Does that sound familiar? The thing that kept you safe as a kid, earning love by completely accommodating everyone else's needs before your own and constantly focusing your attention outward, is the exact same mechanism that's now actively depleting your adult life.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is a specific term Jung coined for the extreme result of this outward focus, participation mystique. It sounds fancy, but essentially, it describes a state where you are so psychologically merged with another person that you literally lose your own boundaries. You hit a point where you can't even tell where you end and they begin. If they're in a bad mood, you're in a bad mood. Your entire sense of peace depends completely on their approval. When you're caught in participation mystique, you're unhealthily enmeshed. It might feel like this incredibly intense, profound connection, but really, it's the total loss of your own separate identity.
And that brings us to a rather uncomfortable turning point. I want you to imagine, just for a second, what would happen if you simply stopped? Like, really? If you completely dropped the mental gymnastics, if you stopped obsessing over what that text meant or what they might do next Thursday, what would be left? Facing the reality of what happens when that mental noise finally stops, well, that's exactly what makes doing this inner work so incredibly terrifying and difficult for most people.
Because here's the thing, when the noise finally stops, you are left alone with the inner void. You're left sitting with everything you've been using that other person to actively avoid feeling. Without the constant distraction of obsessing over them, you might suddenly have to face some pretty heavy stuff. Profound loneliness,
a deep gnawing fear of rejection, unprocessed grief, or anger. You might even start asking yourself terrifying questions about your own life's purpose. That obsessive thinking, it acts like a giant, heavy, weighted blanket. It's an incredibly effective defense mechanism designed by your brain to cover up all those uncomfortable hidden feelings you just don't want to look at.
So the crucial point is this hard-hitting realization. As long as you're trying to figure them out, you don't have to figure yourself out. Hyper-focusing outward is literally the ultimate escape plan for running away from yourself. Every single ounce of psychic energy you spend trying to manage, predict, or analyze someone else is energy completely stolen directly from your own life and your own internal development. You're basically funding their character arc while entirely abandoning your own.
But don't worry, we're not just going to leave it there. To actually cure this, Jung offers what he calls the path of individuation. Individuation is this incredible, lifelong process of becoming your true, authentic self. It means fundamentally differentiating yourself from your family's baggage, from collective societal expectations, and most importantly for us today, from the projections you constantly place on others. It's about learning to live firmly from your own center, rather than constantly reacting from the outside in. Bringing all that lost psychic energy back home to the self is, according to Jung, quite literally the only path to real freedom and lasting peace of mind.
Let's see how this builds into actual real-world application, because we definitely need concrete ways to rewire the brain here. How do we break the loop? You start by simply noticing the obsessive thought when it pops up. Don't judge it. Don't get mad at yourself for doing it again. Just observe it. Oh, there's that thought. Then, very gently, redirect your attention away from that mental loop. Finally, return to your breath, feel your body, and ground yourself in the present moment. Listen, every single time you do this, even if it's 50 times a day, you are mechanically building a brand new neural pathway. You are physically teaching your mind that it actually has a choice.
Now, as you redirect your thoughts, you have to play detective a little bit and look at what that rumination was actually trying to achieve in the first place. What underlying need is your obsessive thinking desperately trying to satisfy? Is it a need for control because you're in an uncertain situation? Is it a need for comfort or maybe connection? Once you pinpoint it, you must learn to meet your own needs directly. If you're lonely, call a friend who is actually present in your life right now. If you need comfort, do something that genuinely comforts you. You have got to step out of the mental fantasy, which, let's be honest, usually casts us as either the helpless victim or the misunderstood hero, and engage directly with actual reality. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive shift that happens when you actually do this work. You move from caring from a place of need to caring from a place of wholeness. Caring from need is, well, it's pretty toxic. It's desperate, it's constantly trying to micromanage and control the other person, and it's always seeking external validation just to fill that inner void. But Jung's reality of mature, differentiated love, that's caring from wholeness. It's spacious. It accepts people exactly as they are without secretly needing them to change. And it gives love from a place of personal overflow rather than internal emptiness. It's an absolute game changer.
This introduces this absolutely beautiful paradox about human relationships. By thinking less about someone and by actively hitting pause on those endless mental rehearsals where we script out every single word we're going to say to them, we actually become far more capable of genuine intimacy. Real connection? It can only ever happen in the present moment. When you finally drop your script, when you stop interacting with the projected imaginary image of the person in your head, you can finally see and actually respond to the real, flawed, beautiful human being standing right in front of you.
Now, of course, reclaiming yourself and really practicing individuation has some very realistic, tangible consequences. You're going to discover your true needs, for sure, and you'll begin feeling genuinely secure from the inside out, finally relating to others from that amazing place of overflow. But I'll be real with you. You also have to be prepared for the painful side of this growth. You will likely have to grieve some relationships in your life that were built entirely on your own self-abandonment. Some connections just won't survive once you stop obsessively managing them. But honestly, letting them go is an absolutely necessary step toward claiming your own freedom.
So I want to leave you with this lingering, provocative thought today. Who would you become if you finally brought all that psychic energy back home to yourself? Seriously, think about it. What could you build? What could you create or experience if you simply stopped outsourcing your mental focus? The exact moment you stop trying to figure everyone else out is the exact moment you give yourself full permission to step into your own wholeness. The energy is yours to reclaim. The choice is entirely yours to make.